for Florida's state attorney, Andrew Warren, thought August 4th would be a regular workday, but turned into him getting escorted by an armed deputy who told him Governor Ron DeSantis had suspended him from office. DeSantis says he suspended Warren, whose jurisdiction includes the city of Tampa, for declining to enforce several state laws, including the Sunshine State's 15-week abortion ban.
You can't just say you're not going to do certain offenses. And then most recently, after the Dobbs decision was rendered by the U.S. Supreme Court, he signed a letter saying he would not enforce any laws relating to protecting the right to life in the state of Florida. And mind you, we have had prohibition on third trimester abortions for a long time. We've had prohibitions on partial birth abortions for a long time. And then most recently, the legislature enacted and I signed protections for unborn babies at 3.5 months. And when they are aborted, it's typically done through a dismemberment procedure, which is really inhumane. Nevertheless, that is what the legislature has enacted, and it's not for him to put himself above that and say that he is not going to enforce the laws. We don't elect people in one part of the state to have veto power over what the entire state decides on these important issues. The Constitution of Florida has vested the veto power in the governor, not in individual state attorneys. And so when you flagrantly violate your oath of office, when you make yourself above the law, you have violated your duty, you have neglected your duty, and you are displaying a lack of competence to be able to perform those duties. And so today we are suspending State Attorney Andrew Warren effective immediately.
While DeSantis says he's seeking Warren's dismissal, Warren is fighting back. He joins us now from Tampa to talk to us about the lawsuit he's filed to be reinstated. S.A. Warren, welcome so much to Roland Martin Unfiltered. We're glad to have you.
Monique, thanks for having me tonight.
So tell us, first of all, is there any truth to the claims by the governor that there are laws that are now on the books and are part of what it's the job of the state's attorney for Florida to prosecute that you have dedicated that you will not prosecute? Is that accurate?
No, it's not at all. I mean, look, truth had left the building at the governor's press conference from 2 weeks ago. You know, he just stands up. He lives in a political arena where he can say things that are totally disconnected from reality. I live in a courtroom. I've spent my career as a prosecutor. I have to say things that are connected to the facts, that are based on evidence. So let's talk about the facts. You know, the governor hasn't been able to cite any example of any law that I've declined to follow here. What he's really upset about is that I voiced my opposition to two of his favorite culture war issues, abortion and transgender health care. Now, no case on either of those two issues has ever come before my office. No arrests have ever been made. The first law, the abortion law, was held unconstitutional in the state of Florida. And the second on gender-affirming health care, there is no law in the books. So this has nothing to do with what I've done as state attorney. This is about what I've said. And the fact that I'm not kowtowing to the governor like everybody else does in the state. So he's punishing me for purely political reasons.
So what document is he talking about that you signed saying that you were not going to be willing to prosecute or enforce these laws?
So there were two letters that I signed with prosecutors from around the country. And they were both on these two separate issues. So regarding abortion, what we said was it was a value statement to say, we shouldn't be criminalizing private medical decisions made between women and their doctors. And as a prosecutor, we should be focused on the rapist, not the rape victim. And let's not lose sight of that. In a situation where, you know, you have a teenager who's been raped and is being forced to carry a baby to term, and they're asking us to potentially prosecute that victim for having an abortion after 15 weeks. By the way, again, a law that's been held unconstitutional under Florida law. the choices were to prosecute the victim and prosecute the rapist. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. So I was saying that we shouldn't be criminalizing these decisions, that this is not an efficient use of taxpayer resources. This isn't something that promotes public safety. And those are views held by the constituents in my community. I know that because they've put their trust in me when they voted for me twice.
Absolutely. And you bring up something that I think is important that we hear about many times, frankly. Governors in this country lean on the broad discretion that prosecutors have in determining whether they are or are not going to be bringing charges in a particular case. And they often utilize that to point to justification for why, where a police misconduct case is concerned, or why something else where the public has an outcry, why the decision of the prosecutor is the one that stands. But it seems here, DeSantis doesn't want you to have that discretion in terms of the way that the state's resources are being used, and also doesn't want you to be able to do something that I think you're supposed to be able to do, which is still use your free speech to speak against an issue, whether or not you end up having to actually prosecute when a law is violated.
That's absolutely right. I mean, you've touched on the two key issues. One is that he's violating my free speech because I'm allowed to speak out. And not only am I allowed to speak out, it's my duty as an elected official to speak out. It's my duty as a prosecutor to speak out on issues that affect the criminal justice system. I mean, that's what elections are all about, right? The voters have a right for me to be transparent. And I was being transparent, saying, I don't think this is a good use of resources. Whether I did it by signing on to a letter, whether I did it if I were called to testify in the state capitol about the issue, it really doesn't make a difference. I'm speaking out on issues that are important to the criminal justice system. But the governor also doesn't have the authority under Florida law just to suspend someone because he doesn't like what they said or he doesn't like how they're exercising their discretion. And that's why we filed suit against him.
So you were elected, correct?
I was elected twice. And I was elected with 370,000 votes. So let's not lose sight of the fact that by suspending me, the governor is not just kicking me out of office. He's throwing out the votes of 370,000 Floridians who put their faith in me, who pulled the lever for me, who want me to represent them in this community. He is taking his judgment and saying, I, the governor, know better than all the people who voted for Andrew Warren. You know, that doesn't happen in democracies. It happens in North Korea. It happens in Russia. That's not the way America works.
Well, at least it's not the way that America is supposed to work. I am going to bring in my panel and see if they have a couple of questions for you. But for my part, as a lawyer of more than 25 years, I certainly wish you the best in this endeavor. I even remember being a government attorney, and many times, frankly, we had to bite our tongues because we were not allowed at that point to make political statements that were contrary to the position of the municipality. I don't know if it was legal or constitutional that they kept us from doing that, but they surely did. All statements came, oddly enough, through the top person in the office, which is the last time I checked in this case would be you. So I don't know what he will use to justify trying to keep you from speaking out. But I do want to welcome our panel to the conversation. We have with us Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali. He is Senior Advisor for Environmental Justice. And we also have with us Dr. Larry J. Walker, Assistant Professor, University of Central Florida. Dr. Mustafa, I'll put you up first. Do you have a question for, I hope, soon to be reinstated State's Attorney Warren?
Yeah, State's Attorney Warren, thank you for standing up and not just accepting, these types of actions. We are going to be moving toward 2024 here rather quickly. Once we get past the midterms, of course, we should stay focused on that. And we know that there's a good chance that Governor DeSantis will be running. The type of behavior that he's shown to you and overstepping his bounds and weaponizing his governor's office, does that give you pause if he was to run for the presidency?
It does. I mean, this is much more about my position, than my position, right? This is about defending our democracy. And the idea that any elected official can just throw out somebody's vote is contrary to the very fiber of our country. And so the governor has showed that he's willing to punish people who have spoken out against him. I mean, think about the people who have spoken out in ways that he disapproved of in Florida. First, it was businesses that he went after. Then it was teachers with, teaching race in their classrooms. Now it's public servants. I mean, who's next? The governor likes to brag about the so-called free state of Florida, but it's sure not free for people who disagree with him.
Absolutely. Dr. Walker, do you have a question for our guest?
I do. Two questions. I think the first question is what are some of the things you've heard from your constituents? You talked about being duly elected twice. What are some of the people saying that you see on the streets or people reach out to you via email, et cetera? What are some of the things you're hearing? And that's the first question. The second question is, let's talk politics. I mean, this is an election year. I'm here in the state of Florida. What role? I think I know the answer to the question, but what role does this being an election year play in what's happened to you recently?
Well, let me answer the first question first. So I've been so encouraged and inspired by the support we've gotten from the community. I've had people, Republicans, Democrats, independents reaching out. People are joining us at AndrewWarrenFL.com. Look, this is not about my race. This is not about politics. This is about democracy. And when I've had people come to me and say, I didn't even vote for you, and I'm not sure I'd vote for you again, but this is messed up. This is not how democracy works. That's really reassuring that people understand what's at stake here and how dangerous this is to the integrity of our elections. In terms of this being an election year, I actually think the reason why this is happening is 2024, not 2022. I mean, the governor has shown that he's either planning to run for president or trying to out-Trump Trump or both. And he spends more time campaigning out in Arizona, New Mexico, and Pennsylvania than he does governing in the state of Florida now. He did this to further his own political agenda so that he can add a line to his stump speech about how tough he is. But the irony is that, he talks about upholding the rule of law. I'm the one who's been following the rule of law in Hillsborough County. I'm the one who put my hand on the Bible and swore to uphold the Florida and the U.S. Constitution. And when it comes to the unconstitutional abortion law, I'm the one person who's actually supporting the Constitution and not enforcing a law that at this point is still unconstitutional.
I have one more question before we let you go. We're about to talk to the NAACP president about the bike stop law. Were you the person who was responsible for taking that law off the books that has now come back on? Or what are your thoughts in general about the policy?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked about that. So this was a policy that we worked with the Tampa Police Department on. And the idea behind it was several years ago in Tampa, there was an issue with a disproportionate number of bike citations, civil infractions, so nothing criminal, where people were being stopped for not having a taillight or something on their bike. And there was a DOJ investigation because it turned out that it was predominantly black cyclists who were being stopped. So Tampa police really changed what they were doing on that. They've drastically reduced the numbers. And we worked with them to figure out how we could continue moving away from that bad policy of the past. And it was just a policy where our attorneys were taking a second look at these cases to make sure that they weren't filing cases where the initial stop may have been discriminatory or in violation of the Fourth Amendment. Now, my successor, the person who the governor appointed, his handpicked person who's never gotten a single vote for any office in her life, right away undid that policy. And I'm worried about the impact that it's going to have because these are policies put in place to promote fairness and justice in the system. And the opposite is going to end up furthering racial disparities that we've seen.
Well, thank you so much, State's Attorney Warren, for being with us. We certainly wish you the best in having your fight for justice, not just for you, but really for the honor of the office itself of State's Attorney, because whatever it is that the governor's able to get away with doing here can happen other places in the nation, and we absolutely do not want that. So please keep us posted on how it's going. We certainly will be keeping an eye on the story.
Thank you so much. Have a great night, Monique.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?